Once we have this, and you know the structure of the balance sheet in 1 year, let's move on to the second step. Now, the second step would be just to look at the evolution over the years to see what happened to the balance sheet over the last few years, to have an idea of the evolution and to start to infer what would happen in the future. Now, recall that we have this balance sheet and we're going to I just added one more column to this table, which is basically the difference between the year 2007 and the year 2004. That difference is this column here. Now, again, to understand what happened, see first that we have more than double the total size of our balance sheet, as you can see here. We went from 483 to 1225 here, so we increased 742, which is a big amount, right? Now, why did the asset side increase so much? Well, you can see that it's coming basically from two sides. One is the receivables that went from 188 to 649, so increased 461. And then the other one is the inventory that increased to 60. I don't want to comment on the other numbers because they are small numbers. And as we said at the beginning, it's better to focus on the big numbers. So mostly the increase in the asset side is coming from receivables and inventory. Now, how are we financing those extra 700,000 euros? Where is all that money coming from? Well, you can see that some of it is coming from the payables. You can sum the two of them, and the payables is 562 the last year. And then it's coming as well from the credit, which increased by 200. And it's coming as well from some long-term debt, which didn't increase that much, which is just only 50. Once we have this, we want to understand, what is this line here? Well, as you can see, there is this line of payables, and then there is the line of promissory notes to suppliers. Now, that line of promissory notes was empty the first year, the second year, the third year. What about the fourth year? Why do we have there 162 here? What do you think that is? What does it mean? Is it supplier as well? Well, I can tell you it is suppliers. It's money that we owe our suppliers. But then you could say, then if it's money that you owe your suppliers, what is the difference between the normal payables, suppliers, and the promissory notes? Well, the difference is subtle, but it is very important. The difference is that the promissory notes have strong legal implications, which means that if you don't pay your bill in due date, you can go to court for not paying that. Let's say, for example, that you owe some money to your suppliers and you have to pay in 60 days, for example. Now, day 60 comes and you say, I have no money here. So you call your supplier and say, hey, Sam, I'm sorry, I couldn't pay you today, but if you give me 3 or 4 more days, I will get some more cash in and I'll be able to pay you. He might say, yeah, no problem. So take 3 or 4 days, that's fine. That's for the suppliers. For the promissory note, says in a note that is signed and that has a strong legal implication, it says you have to pay in 60 days. So if I don't pay in 60 days, a phone call does nothing. You have to pay in 60 days. If you don't do it, you can go to court and they can sue you and you might have to liquidate. I'm being a little extreme, but this is what it is, right? Now, the question that you probably have is, why do we have promissory notes in the last year and we didn't have it before? Why the supplier is asking us for some strong legal document we didn't ask before? Well, perhaps he's getting a little angry at us. Why can't he get angry at us? You can answer that question. A supplier gets angry when probably he's not paid on time. Do we see here if they are paid on time or not? We don't see it there yet. So let's keep this in mind for the next part. Just bear that in mind. Now, if we go back to the understanding of the evolution and we go a little bit deeply on understanding what's happening, I asked you one question. What is the reason behind the receivables, for example, changing the first year from 188 to 649. So why the receivables increase? There's basically two reasons, right? One reason is I have increased my sales. So the more sales, the more invoices, so the more receivables. But it could be the case that even with the same level of sales, we might have receivables that are increasing. And this could be due to the fact that customers are paying each time later and later. So the invoices in your box of invoices are being accumulated there. So your collection period is extended. But by looking at those two numbers, can you distinguish which part of the increase comes from an increase in sales and which part of that increase comes from a deterioration of the collection days? Can you? No, we can't, right? Because there's just one number. We don't know what are the collection days. That's why we need to look into the operational ratios, which is the way we call the collection days, to understand why the increase is happening. In other words, to understand why there is such a big need of financing. The big need of finance comes from the increase in assets, and the increase in assets comes from either higher sales or worse collection.